the USMLE, US Clinical Rotations Masterclass. Okay. In this Masterclass, we're going to talk about the 10 different types of USCE. But before I do that, I want to take you through what I call as step Z scoring, which is the ultimate score that leads to a match, right? So in order for you to understand like the what of USCE, the how of USCE, you need to first understand the why of USCE. Why does it exist, right? In terms of this whole match scenario, right? And why is it even pertinent? Because if you don't understand the why, it's very hard to make that decision of what you should go for, right? Or how you should go about what kind of United States clinical rotations you want, right? But if your why is clear, it becomes really easy. And step Z scoring is one way of knowing that. Secondly, I'm going to go into throughout this seminar, we're going to go into the 10 kinds of clinical rotations. I'm going to tell you how to get each kind of rotation and hold your hand and basically show you everything there. Third is, right, many people ask me about free clinical rotations. Some of what people think is a free clinical rotation is great. But then there are free clinical rotations which are predatory. And then there are other free clinical rotations which tend to be more expensive than you might think, right? And I'm going to kind of talk to you about how should you evaluate even a free clinical rotation, and is free clinical rotations at times, are they even worth it, right? We're going to jump into how to find clinical rotations that actually push you forward in your matching rather than push you away from that. And for the people who stick till the end, right, in the seminar, we have a lot of free resources to give you, such as email templates, right? Plus, we have other gifts as well, but only for the people who stick till the end. And also, there's a live Q&A at the end, right, which will be about 15 minutes. You guys can give me your own questions, and I'll try my best to answer them, right, in the limited time that we have. So let's start with this question, like, why do stellar applicants fail to get interviews and match, right? And that's where the idea of step Z scoring comes in, is if I look, so this is what all programs use, right? And it's a way to convert the intangible, right, or qualitative into quantitative aspects for each program to rank who should we invite and who we should not invite, right? Yes, there are filters, hard filters, where let's say if you have an attempt, right? Or let's say if you have a certain YOG, your application is weeded out immediately, right? But after that, like let's say we have 10,000 applicants. And because of these filters of attempts and YOGs, we weed out 2,000 applicants. Out of these 8,000 applicants, I'm not going to invite all 8,000, right? I'm going to invite out of these 8,000, let's say I have 20 residency spots, 20 into 10, so which would be 200. So for each spot, it's about 10 applicants for each spot, so 200 out of 8,000. So who makes that cut out of those 8,000 people, right? Those 200 people who will be invited and the 10 who will be selected, right? And the way to determine that in a quantitative manner is step Z score, right? Which is looking at your step to score, right? And subtracting USCE, LORs, research publications, research experience, volunteer experience, networking, year of graduation, visa requirement, step 1 attempts, step 3, and medical school quality, right? And it's an algorithm that almost all programs use, but it varies based upon what kind of program it is, right? But it's a very great way to look at an applicant in a general manner and predict how well they're going to do in the residency, right? Let me give you an example of how this works, right? So whenever you do a US clinical experience, right, all programs have what we call as a USCE rating scale, right? United States clinical experience rating scale, where they look at a sub-internship, right? I'll tell you what a sub-internship is, but this is the best kind of USCE you can get, right? So sub-internship would have a score of -0, right? If it's a university, like let's say sub-internship in a university program, it's -0. If it's a community sub-internship, you get a -1 subtraction out of your score, right? If it's just an elective clerkship, you get a -2. If you get an externship, you get a -4. Observership, -6. Tele-rotation, -8. No USCE, -10 out of your score, right? So the higher your level of experience, the lower the subtraction. So the higher the quality of the experience, right, is proportional to, inversely proportional to how much of a negative score you get or a subtraction you get. To explain this further, for example, your STEPZ score, right? And let's say you have a 270. You have done 4 sub-internships, right? So a sub-internship has a -0 score. So if we take an average, -0/4 is 0. So you get a -0 out of this. You get a 270 on your STEPZ score, right? Let's say we are looking at, you did just 2 sub-internships, right? You can do 4, you can do 2, right? Just 2. So you have 4 LORs that you have to upload, right? You just have 2 LORs. Now it's -2 plus -2, right? For your sub-internship, right? Plus -10 plus -10, right? So I apologize. I think I made a mistake here. This is meant to be more electives. Okay, it wasn't meant for sub-internship. So let's say you do 2 electives. An elective gets a -2 because it's not as good as a sub-internship. So you did 2 electives, -2 plus -2. And let's say you didn't do 2 other rotations, so no USCE, you get a -10. So -10 plus -10 over 4, you get a score of -24/4, which is -6. So if you have a 270, your score went from 270 to about 264. A STEPZ score with 2 sub-internships and 2 externships, right? So now you have 2 sub-internships. A sub-internship gets, let's say, and I again meant electives. I made that mistake. I apologize, right? So -2 plus -2, which is you did 2, right? So -2 plus -2 plus, let's say you did 2 externships. An externship gets a -4. So -4 plus -4, 2 externships. Your total score is -12/4, which is -3 subtraction. So your 270 went from a 267. So in the first instance, your score was 270, right? Because you had the best quality experiences. Second, you had a score of 264. And in the third instance, you had a score of 263, right? 267, I apologize, 267, based upon your USCE, right? Another example I can give you for STEPZ scoring is the LOR rating scale that many programs use, right? The first level, let's say the best LORs that we could have is a letter from a US program director who worked with you in the specialty you're applying for, right? For that, you get a -0, which is if you have a 270, your score remains a 270, right? Let's say the letter is from a US program director who worked with you directly in a different specialty that you're applying for. So let's say you're applying for internal medicine, but you got a letter from psych saying that you want to apply for internal medicine from a psych PD. Your 270 becomes a 268 now, right? Let's say the third or fourth level would be same as the above, but replace the program director with an attending, right? So you get a -4 here. So your 270 went to a 264. The fifth level could be, let's say, hands-on clinical experience outside of the US written by a physician who worked directly with you, right? This could be a -5, which is your 270 went to a 265 or something, right? This is 266. My maths is off today. Yeah, this is 266 here. But I think you get the point. So the better the quality of your experience, it leads to a higher STEPZ score, right? Because we are subtracting less, right? And just to put this all home, right? I'm just going to give you an applicant of how like a program would look at these 2 applicants, an applicant with a 270 score and an applicant with a STEP2 score of 230, right? 2 different applicants. To the naked eye, this would feel as if this person deserves the interview, right? Because I think that's the system we have been brought in, right? To you, it should be the 270, you should get the interview. And that's what I thought as well. The 230 doesn't deserve it as much, but let's go into STEPZ scoring to see how it works, right? So let's say you have a 270, you have a score of 270 on the step 2, let's say, right? USCE, you have 0. You didn't do any USCE, you get a -10 because of that, right? Because I talked to you about the USCE rating scale, right? Which many programs can use, and that gives you a -10. So your 270 now all of a sudden went to 260, right? You don't have any US LORs, right? You get a -10 again. You went to a 250. Research publications, you have nil, right? which went to a 240 now because we subtracted 10. Research experience, you have none, right? You went to a 230 now. Volunteer experience, none. We're going to subtract, let's say 5, or let's say, I'm not saying even none. Out of a 10-point scale, you have some experience, so you get a -5. So you get a 225 now, right? Networking, this means like, are you networked well within the specialty, which is, do other people, like big people in the specialty, know you, right? If they know you, you get a lower subtraction from the STEPZ score, right? If, let's say, other people don't know you, you get a higher subtraction, if that makes sense. So networking can be intra-program networking, which is, do you know people in the program and do they like you? It could be inter-specialty networking, so outside of the program, right? Which is the residency that you're applying for, right? Year of graduation, let's say you're a recent grad, so you get a -2. You have you are a visa requiring candidate, which is a burden for the applicant, for the program, because if you're a visa applicant, right, that is an equivalent of if you've ever imported anything from another country, right? And I apologize for the objectification here, but I think that's the best analogy I could get, right? Because I've imported stuff and you need to pay import duties, right? When somebody, you have to sponsor a visa for somebody, right? A J1 or a H1. That is very much equivalent to paying import charges for that person, because you are the person, either, let's say for H1B, I'm the one paying for your visa, for you to stay here, right? I'm not only just paying the money for the lawyer, I'm also paying for the risk if you get kicked out of the country for some reason. And this happens a lot, more than what you would think. For a J1, it is the ECFMG who sponsor it, so the program doesn't pay for any of this, right? But the risk, the program pays for. So if I get somebody who has a green card versus somebody who has a visa, if you get, let's say you were drinking, you get a DUI, which is driving under influence, right? Police caught you and it's on your record. At least I don't have to worry about you leaving the country and you can still remain. If you're on a visa, there's a strict policy that you get fired by ECFMG, right? And the program loses a resident, which is very expensive for the program, because a program makes a lot of money by having that resident, right? So because of that, a visa is seen as a negative aspect to each applicant. And this is like, you might feel that why are they doing it? Like, why me, right? But to them, right, just like you don't want to pay import charges, right? They also don't want to pay those import charges, right? Like, these are just, residencies are very much like businesses, and they're evaluating each candidate to see who's a win-win for us, right? And so a visa is seen as a negative. So let's say you could have a 270, but because of the visa, your 270 goes to, let's say, 260 and then lower on. So let's say you have a visa, you get a -10, right? No step 1 attempts, that's good, right? So you get a 0 in, negation. Step 3, you, let's say, didn't give step 3, you gave step 3 and you get a 0 because of that, like -0, right? And your step Z score, so your medical school quality is top notch, which is why we're not going to subtract anything from your step score. So your 270 just had a -67 to it, right? So we subtracted 67, and your 270 went to a 203, right? And this is what every applicant is judged on, right? Which is their step Z score, which is 203, not their 270. Another example is somebody who has a 230, right? Their step 2 score is 230, but their USCE is top notch. They did sub internships, the best of the best, right? So they get a -0, so they don't get anything subtracted from their step 2 score. Their LORs are top notch, nothing subtracted. Research publications are top notch. Research experience is amazing. Volunteer experience, everything is checked, in the bucket. Networking, they know people in the program, outside the program. Year of graduation, let's say they're a bit late, right? So we subtract a -4. From that, they have a green card. No step 1 attempts, right? They've given step 3, not given step 3, right? So if they've given step 3, we're not going to subtract any points. And medical school quality is top notch, right? So in this case, your 230, because of that, let's say YOG, right? The only issue was your year of graduation. It went to a 226, right? Your step 2 score went from a 230 to your step Z score of 226. So let's compare those applicants. Here you had a 270, right? A 270 went to a 203, and what they applied was the step Z score, which is based upon the EACM holistic model by ACGME, right? Here, it went from a 230 to a 226, right? So tell me which applicant should I interview? Should I interview the guy who had a step 2 score of 230, but their step Z score, which is a holistic score, is 226, versus somebody who has a step 2 score of 270, good on paper, but their step Z score is 203, right? From the ESEM holistic model perspective, right? That's why you would see a lot of people who have 270s go unmatched, because to the program, their step Z score is low, right? Because they holistically are not the kind of people they're looking for. While you'll see many people who have step 2 scores of 230, 225, but because they know how to play the game, they know how to network, they match, right? And it's pretty interesting how this all works, right? And bringing it back to the analogy that we talked about regarding an iPhone versus an Android phone. Why do people want to buy an iPhone, right? And not an Android phone? Why is this a luxury? The answer to this is pretty simple. Even though you could give Android all the specs you want, specifications, you can say, okay, this has a 8x processor, which is 8 cores, it has a better screen. People still want an iPhone, because what matters is the holistic experience. When you hold an iPhone, it's very different from holding an Android phone, right? It's not the individual components that matter in an iPhone. It is how different components, right? How the screen interacts with the operating system, interacts with the speakers, interacts with the updates. So the holistic experience is what is valuable to you in an iPhone. And Android can pitch any number of specs at once. But the problem is that it's not holistic, right? You can tell me whatever you have. You might have the best scores. You might have on your, let's say, processor performance, the best graphics. But if it doesn't work well together, your experiences plus your attributes, plus your competencies, plus your metrics, they don't work holistically. I don't want to buy an Android because of that. And so do programs don't want to invest in a person who's just an Android. They want an iPhone, right? If that makes any sense, and if that brings it home, is holisticity matters more in the match than what a score can give you. And that brings me to the point of USCE and why this class is so important. I think you need to know that before I can tell you anything more about US clinical experiences, because then it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense that why should I do a sub-internship? Why should I not do an externship? Why should I not do an elective, right? Because if you don't know that, it's hard to make that judgment. I think like now that you know that, it's very powerful, because now you know what to do, what not to do, right? So the difference between average applicant receiving multiple interviews and matching, right? And a stellar applicant receiving none, right? So you could have a 230 and have 20 interviews versus a 270 and get 0 interviews is this one single factor, which is US clinical experience plus letters of recommendations. And let me break it down why that is the case. So let's look at your USCEs and LORs, right? So what makes USCE critical? First of all, Z scoring that we talked about, right? So it influences your total step score, which is we call as step Z score, which influences whether I should invite you for an interview or not. It adds to the holisticity of your experience, right? Number one. Number two, if you do a quality experience, you get research publications. An example I can give you is if you go to a big place, right? Let's say you go to a sub-internship in a big institution versus you go to a clinic from a private company, right? In a sub-internship, you will have somebody who is in the academic background more often than not. If you have an interesting case, they're going to teach you how to do the case report, right? They're going to guide you. In a clinical rotation from a private company, this will never happen. And guess what? Publications matter, right? Next, let's look at research experience, right? Let's say you go to a sub-internship in a quality institution, which is a university. Now, what's going to happen is as you do your 1 month rotation there, you're going to meet academic people. And guess what these academic people are doing? Research. And guess what are they looking for? Research assistants or postdocs. My other question is, if you are going to go for a private clinic rotation, right, where you don't get access to this, right, this research assistant position, what's going to happen, right? Your total step score is going to fall with the private rotation. Versus if I go to a quality experience, which is hands-on, right, in a big university, I get the research experience points. They're not going to get subtracted. Networking. If I do a proper sub-internship and I'm in a big university, there's a lot of people to network with, right? They're going to tell me what? Go to this conference. Because this conference is relevant. I'm going to go to this conference, my network expands more. The more my network expands, right? Let's say in the program, I have network, right? Outside of the program, I start developing a network. And this is the whole specialty itself. Guess what is that going to do? It's going to help you match because your step Z score rises, right? Next is your unique contribution, right? So for example, the US clinical experience is the only experience where the context of evaluation is US and it makes sense, right? Because whatever you might be doing in your home country is not always pragmatic or practical to the US itself. An example I can give you is scenarios of ethics, where if you do the same thing that you did in your home country, but in the US, you're going to be looked at with very skeptical eyes, right? The way you do it, right? In terms of autonomy, right? Which is huge in the US. Autonomy is how much importance do you give to a patient in their decision making, right? In India, where I'm from, India is an amazing country, by the way, right? Sometimes autonomy isn't as emphasized. We don't even listen to the patient at times because there's no time in it. And I get it, right? That's the restriction. But in the US, autonomy is huge because you have to get into account what the patient is saying, what the family is saying. Is there concordance with what the patient and family is saying? Is it, if it's not, right, does the patient have capacity? Right? If they don't have capacity, who makes that decision, right? So that evaluation gets missed in terms of home country evaluations, right? Because they don't know these things, right? And that's why this unique contribution to you as a person in this US context, you're not going to get it anywhere else, right? But the US, right? So this unique contribution is critical. Next is even our LORs, right? That unique contribution is what people care about, right? Because not only does that raise your step score through getting you a LOR, right? It also adds a third person perspective, which is somebody in the US is evaluating you, right, from a third person perspective. And I can now trust this experience because you're coming from the same country I'm from, where laws are similar, right? For example, if I'm from India and my professor gives me a LOR versus if I'm from the US and you give me a LOR, it's very hard to, first of all, judge, like if I'm a US based attending or a program director, I'm going to trust this more than this, right? Because you as a US based attending know the US system and I can trust your assessment in the way you write, right? Because there's a common language there. You understand the context, then somebody from India, right? So this is very, very important to get, like, this is why US based clinical settings are so important to get that evaluation compared to what you would have in other countries, right? A unique contribution, just like, we talked about the USCE, LORs and USCE are what makes the difference in matching versus not matching. If, let's say you're a stellar applicant, you might not match or you might get no interviews because this sucks. And the problem is people are never educated about the holistic, like when I was starting, I'll be very honest, right? When I was applying for USCE, I had no idea what the ESEF holistic model was, right? I had no idea that what Z scoring was, right? How programs look at me. And when you get into a quality program, you start learning this. And I think that's what I wanted with this lecture, is to give you an idea to evaluate and become an independent thinker based upon these models to see what would help you match at the best without being without giving into the group think that many people give into, that if, okay, my friends are doing this USCE, I should go do it, right? If they're jumping in the well, I'll jump with them, right? I don't want you to do that, right? I also don't want you to go into the narrative of, hey, Manik, what do you think I should do, right? Whatever you tell me, I'll do it, right? I would not ask you to do any of that, or that's the same advice I'll tell my brother, is you have to develop a sense of intuition to see what's good for you. And the only way to do that is by becoming an independent thinker. And these models are going to help you with that independent thinking before we go into the types of rotations and their impact on LORs. Because now you know the why, now you know the ESEM holistic model, now you know step Z scoring. All of this that I'm going to go into will make sense, right? So let's go into the most important of clinical rotations, right? The first one is sub-internships, right? These clinical rotations are equivalent to working as a first-year resident in the US. Okay, so when you're working as a first-year resident in the US, you have a patient panel under you. For example, if I'm an intern, right? Intern is first-year resident, PGY-1. If I'm working as an intern, I have to independently take care of 4 patients, at least by myself, right? Every US clinical student that you'll find in medicine, US medicine, DOs, Caribbean students, right, who go to Caribbean schools, almost all of them have this built into their curriculum, which is their 3rd or 4th year. So US school is 4 years long. First 2 years are preclinical, last 2 years are clinical, right? All of them do this in the form of what we call as audit rotations, right? Which is basically sub-internships for international medical graduates. That's how it's termed. I want to ask you, right, what do you think will generate an amazing letter of recommendation? The instance where you as a person took care of 4 patients under you, right, where you were not only just responsible for writing notes, you created treatment plans, which included not only just medications, what should we medicate, diagnosis independently, maybe interventions where you did some, let's say, interventions on the patient. It could be, paracentesis, right, at its basis, if somebody has cirrhosis, right? Not only that, you also went ahead and worked with the social worker because they were homeless, right? This patient doesn't have a home to go back to, and you figure out a homeless shelter for them. Versus an observer who all he or she did was shadow. What, as an attending, right, to me, as a question to you is, what do you think would lead to a more genuine, personalized LOR? A place where you actually did a lot of those things and I can comment about them, you were independent in doing them, right? And what would a program care more about? Would they care about a resident who can just shadow, look at people, as they're doing work, versus a resident who's in action, who's actually taking their knowledge, making it pragmatic, and displaying all the, we talked about the attributes, right? Adaptability. How am I going to show my adaptability if I'm just going to shadow, right? We talked about other attributes like curiosity. How am I going to show curiosity if I'm not even allowed to talk while, the patient is talking because it's an observership, right? So that is why sub-internships are the best of the best, because it takes you from watching to action, right? Which is way more important in medicine, right? So this is why sub-internships are level 1 and the best of the best. And they're pretty hard to get, but there are ways to get them. And let's go into how to get them, right? The first way to get sub-internships, and I think I also have to make this clear, is I get asked this question: can I do sub-internships if I'm a graduate or an undergraduate? The answer is you can do it if you're a graduate, you can do it if you're an undergraduate. Some people will tell you it's illegal to do hands-on rotations as a graduate. From my experience, I initially used to think that, but that's not really true. It's more about hospital policy and state laws. So in US, we have federal laws, which is, all country level laws, right? Then we have state laws, and level 3 is hospital policies, right? Federal law itself doesn't tell me any of this, that, hey, you're not allowed to do hands-on experience. State laws at times do, right? So let's say in certain states, you can't do hands-on experience as a graduate. In certain states, you can, right? And hospital policies are the last layer. So if a state says you can, hospital says you can, it is legal for you as a graduate to do a sub-internship or any kind of hands-on experience, right? The other burden you'll see come up is, like, you might ask me the question, why do graduates not get a lot of these electives, right? The reason for that is hospital policies and insurance, right? So a state might allow a graduate to do all of this, hands-on experience. But the problem is insurances can become a barrier where, like, if you get sued, who's going to take care of this, right? Or if something happens, who's going to take care of this? And hospitals don't want to take that risk, right? So a lot of the times it comes at either a state issue or a hospital issue that a graduate isn't allowed to do hands-on experience. But in general, it isn't illegal in any way, right? Just to clarify that. So sub-internships are available if you're in med school. They're available if you are out of med school. And there are two types of sub-internships, formal and informal. Formals are the ones which are advertised. Informals are the ones which aren't advertised. Right? Formals are the ones, if you do a Google search, right, you go through, let's say, let's say internal medicine sub-internships for IMGs, right? You're going to find some experiences where they're advertising, yes, we have a sub-internship, it's a formal program, apply to us, right? Informal ones are the ones that don't exist, but they can create the positions. An example, and I'll go into this later as well, is what we call as researcherships, which is if you're a research fellow and the program likes you, which is you're working with them, you've contributed a lot, even if they might not have a sub-internship they're advertising, right? If they think they want to work with you, they want to help you, they will create a position for you, right? This is what we call as informal sub-internships. And you'll see many international medical graduates who are doing research in the US. It opens a lot of these informal opportunities that are not accessible online, right? Because you're not in the right network, right? And those are informal and they can only be accessed if you have a network access to that hospital or the program or somebody in the specialty who's very influential, right? Second is electives or clerkships, right? These are experiences which are hands-on, right? Sub-internships are also hands-on, right? But they are more meant for medical students, right? It's a layer below, a level below sub-internships, right? And in electives or clerkships, what you do is you as a medical student are part of the treatment team, which means as a medical student, you're allowed to take part in patient interaction, which means you can talk to the patient, you can formulate your diagnosis, differentials, and you can make your plan, which gives me a lot to talk about, right? Which is why this is powerful, because that leads to a better LOR, right? Also, if you look at sub-internships, right, if it's a university one or let's say elective, you're going to get access to research opportunities, which people don't get in other places, right? Or let's say you get publications out of this, right? Because there's academic people there. So is electives, right? And it's way beyond hands-on. People think, okay, I want hands-on experience. I would ask you to look at it from a broader perspective, to think about the holistic model and how does this kind of rotation influence the holistic evaluation that I'm going to have later on, right? So the way to get electives, right, if you're an undergraduate, that's the only way to get it, is it's either the VSLO, right, or a non-VSLO pathway, right? VSLO stands for Visiting Student Learning Opportunities. Your program has, your medical school has to be enrolled in VSLO for you to be able to gain access to these, right? And there are a few schools in India and I think, other parts which have access. And this gives you like access to really cream of the crop opportunities like Mayo. I think Mayo is huge in this, right? There's Harvard as well, right? These are expensive, $5,000 and upwards. But let me tell you, if you have access, this $5,000 is the best money you're going to spend, right? This is the same advice I give my brother. If you can get a rotation that is highly, it has high quality, it's like getting an iPhone, right? An iPhone, you pay in the starting, you pay a lot, right? But it pays in the end. And, once you make that payment, because it's so easy to use, right? The service is so good. It's not a headache for you to go get it replaced. Guarantee is so good. And I think that's kind of the same thing is with VSLO and a lot of these expensive rotations, right? You get what you pay for. So I would ask you to look at it from a broader perspective of not what I'm paying right now, but what am I going to pay for the match itself if, let's say, I don't end up matching, or let's say if I don't expand on my ESEM holistic review itself, right? So these are the best of the best. If you have access, please get them. Sub-internships, best of the best. If you have them, I think money should not be a factor you should consider, unless I know some people have a budget and I get it. But if I think, if your pocket allows it, one of the best experiences you can get hands-on. Right. The other ways to get electives are non-VSLOs, right, which is non-VSLO applications. This can be accessed through, your network, right, which is asking other people, hey, is there another elective? Like Cleveland Clinic is a very famous one, right? It's a bit hard to land because it's very competitive. The reason for that is not only is it quality, but also it's cheap. It's like $250. This is one of the only ones where you pay a deposit of $250. I think they made it like, my time it was $250. Now it must be higher or something, right? But it's $250 to $300, and they also pay for your housing. So all you're paying for the experience is $300 plus, your housing is taken care of. But it's very hard to land because of this, right? And it's booked out way in advance because of this, right? Other opportunities, if you want to know about them, right, I'll go in the end, and towards the end, I'll talk to you about how I can update you on all these opportunities, because there's a huge list of non-VSLO institutions that you can be aware of. If you want to find it out for yourself, it's not hard. All you have to do is, right, and I'll show you the process later on, is go to Residency Explorer or Frida. These are two sites, and I'll walk you through the practical aspect of this as well. Search for programs that take IMGs, right? Rank them by highest percentage of IMG intake to the lowest percentage of IMG intake. Go to their website and see if they have any medical school electives, right, for you, right? Because the reason this is so powerful is if they have a lot of IMGs, they can take those people in, right? And if you do a rotation there and now you network with them, right? Think about your Z score and how high it will be in matching into that program itself. I think that's one way to do it, and that's one of the best I can think of, right? Other ways is, I'll touch on this later as well in the end, is I'll try to keep a list of this and update you guys on this, right? And you can sign up for that if you want, and we can provide that to you for free in the end, right? Okay, next, let's jump into externships, right? Externships are hands-on clinical experience for graduates, like I talked to you about. These are legal. Some people will tell you it's illegal. It's not true. It's just the state law and the hospital policies which will dictate if you can practice as an extern, which is a hands-on experience, right, for a graduate, right? These are rare and can be challenging to find, right? We have a list of all these sub-externships that exist, right, which are very, very decent. They are in university, or at least if not university, they are with programs which take IMGs, right? And if you're interested in it, let us know, right? And these change every year, the kind of people who are going to take the program, externships, because of hospital policies changing and state laws changing. So if a hospital policy changes, you'll see externships getting canceled. Or if a state law changes, externships get canceled. So these are like updated on a regular basis. And we try to maintain an updated list. And if you're interested, I'll talk about this in the end as well, on how do you access these rotations, right, for free with us, right? So next is observerships, right? Observerships is what you'll see get marketed a lot, right, because of multiple reasons, and I'll talk about them as well. But basically, an observership is a hands-on experience where a participant, which is you, shadow a physician, but do not directly engage in patient care. The way it is written is, you shouldn't even talk to the patient. You can't do that because it's against insurance laws, right? The way insurances work, you can get sued if you do that. Second is, you can't take you itself cannot make any opinion on the treatment plan. You can't give medications. You don't get EMR access, which is electronic medical record access. So you can't document even technically, because billing doesn't allow it, right? And because of this, the LOR that you get sucks, right? And this is why I showed you those Reddit posts, and I'll implore you, go search for 260 no interviews, 270 no interviews. The common theme is this. They'll talk about they did observerships. And this is what hurts applicants the most, is doing experiences like observerships where they're doing nothing. And to the program, this is like being an Android phone, right? Holistically, this person could have a 270, 300. I don't care. if that doesn't work in real life, it's not well put together, I don't really want it, right? So observerships, right, is what you will also see private companies sell a lot, right? You'll see a lot of companies like AMO, right? I don't want to name companies. I think that'll be bad, but a lot of these private companies who are trying to sell people rotations are basically selling observerships, right? Because they are low liability in many ways. You're not interacting with patients, and also they add to the income of the physician. So you will see that sold a lot, right? But the problem is the LOR from this is very generic because you don't have good clinical interaction and you're hurting yourself, right, by paying for them. And the funny thing about this is, like, when I was when I was applying, I would look at experiences and I was like, okay, let's look at an observership. Why is this $1,500 while a sub internship for me is like $3,500 or $4,000, right? Let me tell you why that is the case, right? You as a person, like, if you're struggling with budget and, the match is expensive, this is very appealing because it's cheaper, it's low risk. If I don't match, that's going to be fine. The overhead is not, going to be a lot on me, right? It'd be okay, low risk, right? But the problem here is this. If they are charging $1,500, what they're also doing is they have 20 to 30 people on board in a single rotation, right, to generate a cash flow, let's say, of $45,000 in a month. Versus, let's say, if you go to a quality rotation in a sub internship, you have 4,000, right? The institution is making that off, right, into, let's say, 3 students. So they're making 12,000. The reason you can get an observership for cheap is because the quantity is so high for students that what you're sacrificing is not only the experience in itself, because it's a lower experience, you're also sacrificing a LOR, which is divided among 30 people, right? Because think about it. If I am a physician in the US, I have to write 30 LORs a month. One LOR is at least going to take 2 hours. If I want to give you a personalized LOR. So 30 into 2 is 60 hours. 60 hours, waking hours, 12 hours, right? If I'm going to work, is 5 days. Do you think as a physician, I'm going to give you 5 days to write a LOR that is personalized to you, right? What am I going to do then? So this is what happens. A lot of these companies have templates where they'll have a template, 5 different types of template, and they'll start churning it, which is out of, let's say, 30 students, right? So 1 in 6 student is getting a very similar LOR, but it's still somewhat different. But the problem is, now think about this, right? If this rotation is taking 30 students into 12 months, you have 360 students. Imagine where your LOR will be when you're applying for the match, when 360 students have nearly the same identical LOR. Guess what would happen? You would not get that interview because the PD has received 360 similar LORs that you just got, right? Your LOR is similar to those, so you're not standing out, right? So what you are paying for in this, if you are trying to get a subsidy on your clinical rotation, you end up paying for the match. And I've seen people not match for 2 or 3 seasons because they're stuck in this loop of these observerships, right? Another problem is a lot of these companies which mentor IMGs, they make their money through rotations, right? So let's say if I'm a company, I sell rotations. The issue is going to be that when I go with you, right, you gave me 3, let's say 2 or 3 rotations or whatever. If you don't match, now you're like, you go back to this company as a mentor, you're like, hey, what do I do next? And this company sells a rotation. What are they going to tell you? Do more USCE. They're going to get you 6 months of USCE. You don't match. You're going to go back. What should I do? We're going to be there for you forever. Don't worry. We're going to be there till you match. 9 months USCE. And this is what a lot of IMGs are stuck in, is they're stuck with these mentoring companies who have a very big conflict of interest. And the conflict of interest is rotations itself, right? Because to me, what makes me money is selling you rotations, right? And doing it in the guise of being a mentor is how they do it, right? It's just a business model. But I think you should be aware of this, like when you're getting into, okay, why is this rotation so cheap? I think I should do this, right? Because it's cheaper. You're paying for the match in the end, right? And that match comes in the form of $20,000 lost. Because not only have to you to, for example, the next match, you have to create the whole application, pay $5,000 for application, plus you have to do USCE all over again, because they're telling you to do USCE. You're going to pay $12,000 extra, right? Plus more travel expenses. So you pay in the later part of the game because of this, right? And that's a trap that I would tell you to be very careful of when you're evaluating experience. Always asking yourself as an independent thinker, does this move me forward towards the match? And I would say question even me, question every single person, right? What their motives are, because what matters in the end is your match, right? And you are the only person who's going to pay that price for the match. And I think that's why you should be educated on what really matters. Let's go into, so observerships, how do you find them, right? There can be private agencies if you are in a situation where you don't have time, right? Because a lot of these rotations take time to apply for. Private agencies can sometimes be good, right? I'm not saying all are bad, and there are some good experiences within private agencies. But if you don't have time, that is a way to go, because they can provide it to you in 2 to 3 months. Versus if you look at a community or university observership, the way to get this, we have a list of this as well for all specialties, and you can let us know about this. It's there for free. So if you want a community observership or a university observership, the best way to do this is go to Residency Explorer and Frida. Look for programs that take IMGs in your specialty, right? Look at the program director. They have their email there, and the program coordinator. Send them an email that I'm an IMG. I'm interested in doing this, right? It can sometimes, the response rate is less than 6%. So if you send 100 emails, expect 6 people to reply. And that's generally the part of the game. It's a numbers game. Don't take it as a rejection, but it does take time, it does take effort, right? I can even give you the template that I used and a lot of other students used if you're interested, right? Which is at the later part of the webinar. So 6 people out of 100 people, that's just the name of the game, right? The other way to do observerships is to get into a networking society, which is network with people. And when I mean networking, people who are above your level, right? So people who are residents or fellows, right? Or people, who might be in the match with you and you think they know other people, you can help them, they can help you, and try to get observerships. One that is very famous is Griffin. You guys can look it up, Griffin Hospital. The only issue with this hospital is, like, while the observership is $800, it has a residency program, right? That's great. It's cheap, like has a residency program. The issue is they don't have an EMR. It's like a state hospital. The EMR they don't have. You have to do paper notes. So while it will help you match into Griffin, the problem is many people are doing this rotation for matching into Griffin. So you have competition because of that, right? And many people don't match, but many people do match as well, right? But the problem is it wouldn't apply as much to other programs because your experience would be limited by not having access to EMR. But there is an ever evolving list of observerships, right? Another way to get an observership is a cold ship, right? Which means cold emailing preceptors, right? And the way to do this is looking, let's say you are in New York City, you want to do a rotation. You can start emailing clinics that you find on Google that, hey, I'm an IMG, I want to do a rotation. Out of 100 people, only 6 are going to reply. Out of the 6, maybe 1 will say yes, right? That's just how it works. Be very careful of free rotations. And this is the myth I was going to go into in this as well, right? What is a free rotation? So here's what a free rotation is. You don't pay. Okay. Let me ask you this. You are a US physician. Your salary is $350,000. And if you compare that to an hourly rate, I've made that calculation before. It's about $200 an hour, $100 to $200 an hour. You email me, you say that you want to do a free rotation. And I say yes. And now you're there with me for a month, right? $200 an hour. There are two things that are going to happen. Let me tell you what's going to happen. Firstly, either they are going to make you work as a scribe, because to them a scribe will cost $60,000 for a year, and you're going to do it for free. And that is okay, right? I get it. Like, it's a skills exchange, but it's more unpaid labor for you getting a LOR. Or the other part of the equation is, even if they take you, there is something else that is involved where they are benefiting, because nobody does it for free, right? At least in the US, that's how a capitalistic society is, right? They are benefiting in some way, which you'll find out later on, right? Even then, I would tell you this, right? If it's a free rotation, my time is $200 an hour, you want a LOR. Do you think I'm going to take 2 hours, which is spend $400 on you to give you a personalized LOR? One second. Yeah. Allah. Yeah. So this is the problem that comes with a free rotation, is you get what you pay for. If, like, somebody's time is worth $200 an hour, they're probably not going to give you a personalized LOR. It's going to be very generic. And this is what I'll be careful of. But there are opportunities where you can work in an unpaid position. Like, it's very much like working as a scribe, a pseudo medical student, a pseudo scribe, where you can get the experience, right? Similar experience, but you are paying with your skills, right? That's the leverage that you hold. Next, that brings me to research electives and research fellowships, right? Research electives themselves are not clinical experience per se. They are basically working in a research lab in a big academic institution with people who have influence, right? For example, you want to do pathology, right? You apply to Johns Hopkins, which is the most famous one. You're there for a month, and you work with them. You're learning, observing, right? And that leads you to grow in that field, right? Expand your perspective, right? It's a great experience, I think, for networking, because you're going to a big institution, right? Let's say if they like you, they can in the future offer you a research position. If they really like you, they feel that you're the kind of person they want to work at. And this could be paid or unpaid. And I'm going to go into how powerful a research position is later on. But this is very, very powerful to the point it can generate free electives. It can literally pay you for the match, which is so paradoxical. But this is the power of research electives, is you're with the best of the best. You're learning from the best of the best. And they have a lot of say. That networking has a lot of power, right? The problem with the research elective is the time, which is 1 month, which is often not a lot for the experience, right? And this is one of the caveats. But again, if you get a chance, I think nothing is bad in terms of USCE, at least in the form of research electives, because they can open a lot of doors, right? They can also give you a LOR, which would be a more research-based LOR, and that works, right? Program directors really like it. And I think if you get access to this, please do it. Lastly, that brings me to researchships, right? Which many people ask me about. A researchship is an experience, which is a sub-internship, which comes out of a research fellowship. So research fellowships are working as a postdoc in the US under a PI, which is a principal investigator, who's funded, or could be unfunded at times, but funded, right? Doing some kind of research for that institution, right? So this guy has a grant or something, and he's paying you or not paying you out of the grant, which depends, right? Research fellowships you can only do if you're a graduate, right? You have to technically graduate for research fellowship. And once you do that, you can apply for postdoc positions, work under a PI. Initially, all of them are unpaid because they want to assess for skills. They want to see if you're good enough. If in 3 to 6 months, they feel you're good, right? They can justify that they can pay you because your skill sets are valuable to them. It gets paid, and you get paid almost what a resident does. And the average pay is $70,000 a year. What many people don't realize is how powerful this is, right? Think about it. You are doing your USMLE. Number one, you're doing USMLE. You're in the US. you're getting paid, you're in a top program, because a research fellowship would only exist if you have money as an academic program. You have access to a big network. That network generates opportunities to get into other programs, right? Into the program. Fourthly, free US clinical experience if they like you, sub-internships. They're going to create positions for you. Fifthly, LORs from the research experience plus this free experience, right? Sixthly, mentoring on the match itself. They'll tell you what to do, what not to do for the match, right? They'll make calls for you when you're applying to get you more interviews. And if you look at anybody who matches into very competitive specialties, right? Or they match into a non-competitive specialty with a very poor application, right? Which you might think is a step attempt, right? Many people have attempts, but they match. The answer is they've done a research ship, because it's so damn powerful that it doesn't just elevate one part of the Z-score, it elevates multiple parts of the Z-score while giving you security. Let's say you don't match. I've talked to a lot of research fellows. Let's say even if you don't match, you have a $70,000 job supporting you, and you could do match multiple times. Imagine how powerful would that be if you're going into a competitive specialty like neurosurgery, right? You have this money that's always there with you, a stable position, right? Plus, this is another part of research fellowships you should realize is skills. The skills that you develop from research are so powerful that the US would want to give you an accelerated green card, because if you have good number of citations, you can apply via EB1 pathway and get a green card. And guess what? What do programs like? Green cards, right? Because now I don't have to sponsor visa. Secondly, not only have you developed research, what happens later on is if you have research skills and you can get me grants as an employer, let's say for millions of dollars, who do you think I'm going to apply? Somebody who can get me millions of dollars in grant. Who am I going to pay more as an attending doctor? Somebody who has these skills or somebody who doesn't? And another part that you have to realize is, if you know about the J1 waiver thing that just happened, right? Recently, they passed a law where J1 waivers were no longer required, which is going back to your home country or for 2 years or 3 years working here in a waiver position, right? They were canceled, not for doctors. Doctors still have to do this, but for researchers. Why do you think they did it? Because the US values researchers more than doctors, because you could easily replace at this day and age a doctor with artificial intelligence by augmenting other doctors with it. So I can take one doctor, take artificial intelligence and expand care rather than hiring another doctor. Or I could take a nurse practitioner or let's say a physician assistant, which are mid-level providers. I can take them and get them to do this work rather than getting a doctor. You're replaceable, honestly, right? A researcher, on the other hand, AI cannot replace, because researchers do a very important thing for society, is they create knowledge. Problem with the AI is you can train it in knowledge. You can't create knowledge with AI. It doesn't ask questions like a good research does, which is the most powerful thing. This is why the US is one of the best countries in the world, is because of research, right? And this is what every specialty is going to value in the coming years, with artificial intelligence coming in, with nurse practitioners, PS coming in. And if you want to be irreplaceable, research is the way to go, because it elevates every part of your Z-score, right? And that's my advice, is if you can get a research fellowship at some point of time, right? I'll tell you how to do this as well. It's not that hard. If you want how to do this, I have a free resource on this. I think I sent a few guys the PDFs for this as well. Stay till the end and I'll tell you how to get that. It's free on us, and it will teach you how to do it, how to get a research fellowship on yourself, right? Versus if you want to work with other people to get it, there's a way to do that too. Right. What is a medical assistant position? Medical assistant is also a form of US clinical experience. This is when you work under a physician as their medical assistant. For this, you need an MD license, which is you have to have a MD license, or you need to be ECFMG certified, which means you have to do step 1, step 2, step 3. Plus, you have to be a green card holder. Do any paid opportunity on a visa. 1 second, I don't know what's up with Teams. Yeah, it's okay. You have to have a green card holder to work as a medical assistant. You're generally paid $25 to $30 an hour to work as a medical assistant. And many students who come to the US who've done their medical schools, who are what we call as USIMGs, right? They come here, work as medical assistant, generate LORs because it's similar, right? You're getting paid for that experience. And because of that, they're able to support themselves in the journey, right? And that is another way that many students don't know how to do it. The way to find medical assistant positions, if you have a green card, is this, right? There are medical assistants who are certified, right, versus uncertified medical assistants. So you can go into a program to do it. Certified medical assistants are paid more than uncertified medical assistants, right, because of that certification, right? So the way to find this out is, let's say you're in a certain state. I'm in New York. Step one would be do a Google search. Okay, let me just show it to you as well. Let me just open Safari here and show you that. So medical assistant position in New York. Okay, so you can find jobs here, right? Again, Indeed has a lot of this, LinkedIn has a lot of this, and they'll say medical assistant externship, certified medical assistant, yada, yada, yada. The question you should also ask is, does New York require medical assistant certification? So see, no, New York does not require medical assistants to certified. So what happens is this, okay? Yeah. Where did my good notes go? Okay, it's here. Yeah. So, yeah. So in medical assistant jobs, right, it's dependent upon state. So each state has its laws, right? Some states require you to be certified to be a medical assistant. Some states don't require certification. You have to first Google medical assistant jobs in the US. And again, this is for green card holders only, unfortunately, right? If you have a green card, you can Google New York City medical assistant jobs and try, like, New York City, wherever you are. And there's plenty. There's so many of these jobs, and they love it because they are basically saving money with you, but also paying you, right? So look for, firstly, does the state require certification or not, by asking that question in the Google. If it doesn't require certification, awesome, go ahead. If it requires certification, right, you can still bypass it, because a lot of, even if the state requires certification, a lot of places, clinics are willing to hire uncertified medical assistants and train them, basically certify them, right? So you can do it, but you're paid lower until you become certified, right? That is another point, right? So certain states where you're not required to be certified are awesome. You don't even need to do it. But certain states which even require certification, you can reach out to them and say, hey, I'm not certified. What should I do next, right? And they would be happy at times to take you up and teach you how to be, and then basically train you, and during that experience also pay you. So that's a great way to get paid while getting USCE and generating letters of recommendations, right? And also think about this, right? If you're in their medical system, the only problem with this is you are going to be in clinics. It's not going to be an academic setting. But if budget is an issue, medical assistant is a great problem, but it can lower your Z score, right? More than a sub internship or other experiences, but then it pays you. Lastly is assistant physicians, right? Assistant physicians are like medical assistant, but assistant physicians are licensed. You have to be a licensed person to be an assistant physician. There are certain states like Arizona, Missouri, Arkansas, and Oklahoma where you can Google assistant physician jobs, right? Just Google assistant physician job in Arizona. Let me show you, okay? Arizona. So physician, not physician assistant is different. PAs are mid-level providers, which are basically they go to their own school. That's not this job. It's assistant physician job as Arizona. It's AP, not PA. And you can see there are assistant physician jobs. Indeed is a good platform. Let me just verify and see if it allows. And you can see there's jobs for PAs, right? Some of these places, PAs is different. It's not the same as assistant physician, right? Uh, yeah. assistant physician's job, Arizona. Another good way to find that out is just to look at like certain facilities, let's say clinics, medical clinic, Arizona, right? So you're going to see all these medical clinics. What I would do is I would, let's say, open up Mountain Park Health, right? I would go down, I would look at what their email is. There'll be an email section somewhere, careers, or they'll give you their email, join our team, and let's say email at talent acquisition MPCH, and you can send them an email. A lot of these positions aren't advertised, right? So you have to reach out and clarify. That's a good way to find jobs where they can pay you, but again, these are restricted to green card holders. Assistant physicians generally make more money than medical assistants, and this kind of USCE is better because it has more than what a medical assistant does. You are more like hands-on. It's more medication, prescribing, more diagnosis based than a medical assistant, which is more so like doing the work of the SCUT work that we would describe, or the nurse kind of work, right? So assistant physicians are better if you have a green card. Next is a fellowship. It's interesting that many people don't look at fellowship from the perspective of clinical experience, but nevertheless, it is a great clinical experience. Let me tell you how, right? If you're a postgraduate, that is, you have done PG training in your country, right, in a certain specialty, or if not PG, PG training, what I mean is residency training, because some people don't understand what PG training is. So if you're a resident who's trained in, let's say, IM, you can apply for fellowships in the US using like generally. So if you look at Pakistan, Pakistan has what we call as ACGMEI accreditation, which is Accreditation Council of Graduate Medical Education in America, has accredited residencies in Pakistan to be applicable for ACGME fellowships, which is like an example of ACGME fellowship is HEMONC for IM, hematology oncology, right? In India, India is still not ACGME accredited, which is ACGMEI accredited. So anybody who does a residency in India isn't technically eligible to apply for ACGME fellowship because we are not certified, right? That doesn't technically mean that we can't still apply because it is a soft filter. It's not a hard filter, right? A good way to do this is, as let's say, if you are from a country who has ACGMEI accreditation, you can Google it, by the way, right? This is how you do it. Let me show you. ACGMEI accredited countries. Okay, so ACGMEI is ACGME International. These are the international countries. If you're from any of these countries like Pakistan, Lebanon, Oman, right? And you have to be within, like, let's say, let's open Pakistan, for example, right? There are only certain residences in Pakistan which are applicable, right? And you like look at search programs and institutions here. So let's say I want to look at, not based upon country. Yeah. So let's say I want to look at Kenya. View report. So it'll give me a report of all the places or specialties. So anesthesiology, if I did my anesthesiology from Kenya, now I can apply for any fellowship, which is ACGME accredited, right, in the US, right, and come to the US and practice, right? That's one way. The other way is if you're from a country which is not ACGME accredited, you go for a non-ACGME fellowship, right? An example of a non-ACGME fellowship is heart failure or medical transplant or whatever, right? Then you can network and ask the program to make an ACGME exception, which can be done, right? And get into an ACGME fellowship by networking. That's the power of networking. And there is a way to bypass it. The other way is something like nephrology. So if you've done internal medicine residency in your country, nephrology is a ACGME accredited fellowship. But even people who are from countries who are not ACGME accredited can apply for nephro because it's non-competitive. Nobody, like the fill rate for nephro is super low. It's like 35% to 40%, right? So they have 60% seats vacant. Even if you apply to this fellowship, you're not from a country that's ACGME accredited, you can still get in because they want to fill the vacancies, right? So that's a way to get into the US. Once you have a fellowship, guess what? You get paid. You make $70,000. Let's say you're doing a HEMONC fellowship, $70,000. These are internal medicine physicians, right? What can they give you? LORs. Where can these LORs help? Match. Guess what? You're also networking. Guess what? You can also do research, right? So this is a very powerful way if you're applying, if you're a postgraduate who wants to come to the US, if you know people around, and if you can get a fellowship, you will basically end up not paying much for the match because the fellowship pays for you. A lot of people who do fellowships actually match into the same program. So for example, you do a HEMONC fellowship in a program like UPMC, and they like you, you can go to the UPMC internal medicine residency to practice, right? That's another way. And this is a type of US clinical experience too, because it's hands-on, you have a license. The other classification I want to use is the university community, which is individuals who are offering it versus private companies, which is private companies offering it, right? University-based elective sometimes tends to be more expensive because they have to cover their cost, right? They only have 5 students, right? 5 students into 5 is $25,000. They have their own cost. They have to pay people, which this $25,000 goes toward. Plus, they have to pay the LOR writer who's spending the time to give you that personalized LOR. That's why they're expensive, right? And I've made the distinction. If that place is generating 5 LORs a month, so 5 into 12 is 60. What you're competing with is these 60 people, but they have personalized LORs. So each LOR is different because there's a low number of students, right? Versus if you look at a private rotation, where there are advantages of this, but certain companies would put you with 30 other students. You're getting 360 LORs from that preceptor, which are not, he's not writing it. Nobody has time to write 360 LORs. Where would that take you in the match is the price that I would think about. So whenever you're comparing prices, I would look at the price and multiply, not multiply, I would take that price, let's say 1,500, right? And multiply it with the number of people doing the rotation, right? So for example, $45,000 for this 1,500 private company rotation versus Harvard, which is 5,000, and only 2 people are doing it, $10,000. The price you pay at the end is this, not this that you think of. And this is a very, very important take-home point, right? In terms of matching and making sure you match, is that you are looking at the final price you end up paying, right? For let's say Harvard, which would be 10,000, but for this rotation, it would be 45,000, right? It's just a way that you can look at it, but I think it's a great way to think about it. So always prioritize university or community-based rotations that individualistic programs are offering, right? You get university-based LORs, right? Or maybe it could be from a community-based program, at least it's a hospital-based LOR, from esteemed professors that other people recognize, right? Also, they have certain styles of writing the LOR, which is only known to people in academics. And, I also have a document on that as well, if you want that list of LORs to kind of give you an idea of what an academic LOR looks like. But there's a very hidden language, which these people who are from like private rotations don't understand, which leads to a generic LOR, right? The caveats of a university LOR or like, let's say a university or community rotation at times is it's short duration. So there are caveats, right? Which is 1 month and it's expensive, right? Limited physician contact because preceptors at times can change weekly. So sometimes what you will see is you have to know where you're going, because let's take like Mayo Clinic, right? That's an example I'll take. It's no, like this is a hypothetical, not really. But some institutions, what they do is, I think University of Alabama is the right one for this, which actually does this. The preceptor there rotates every week. So they have one attending every week and it changes. So the first week you have one attending, second week you have another attending, third week you have another attending, fourth you have another, and all of them are different. The problem is, do you think they're going to write you 4 different LORs? No, right? Also, would they know you in a span of a week? No. You will see many students who go to UAB, University of Alabama, they get 0 LORs despite paying $5,000, right? So they get nothing out of it. So even when you're looking at these university electives, you have to kind of know, you have to know people in the network, which place would give you a LOR, which place won't, and then invest your time based upon that, right? The other part about this is high risk of receiving generic LORs at times. That is also true for certain places, not all places. But certain places do have that generic LOR because the physician doesn't have time, and you have to know this in advance by networking. And the only way to do that is networking, right? Without that, you don't know. And it sometimes can be a chore of getting the LOR done and uploaded for you. because these people are so busy. So you have to kind of plant and seed it in advance, right? A private rotation at times has its advantages. I'll be very honest, is sometimes you have a higher control over LOR request. You have more say in it. Some places allow you to write your own LOR. I don't think that's a good idea. I'll tell you why. Because the academic language gets lost, and it's very easy to spot a self-written LOR versus a LOR which a preceptor from an academic institution wrote. The reason it's so easy to recognize is, number one, LOR language is so obvious that the student wrote it. Second is, it is LOR diversity, which we say is how similar is first LOR to the second LOR, to the third LOR, to the fourth LOR, right? LOR number one, is this similar to LOR number two? Is this similar to LOR number three? Is this similar to LOR number four? If a student has written all their LORs, you will see the LOR diversity is lacking. It's very much the same language, and it's very easy to catch, right? And this leads to people getting blacklisted. I would tell you, if any rotation company is telling you to do that, don't, right? It's a very dangerous thing and can get you blacklisted in certain places. And that's one of the caveats. But the higher control over LOR requests, which is you can tell them what to write, what not to write, which can be a powerful thing with private rotations, and a greater likelihood of securing an LOR, because you're kind of buying that is the LOR itself, right? The problem is subpar physicians. These physicians are not academic physicians, not the best of their field. Nobody recognizes them, right? Secondly, the lack of a university letterhead itself is a problem, or a community, it's a hospital rotation, it's great. But again, university, it tends to be limited. It's like most private rotations don't offer university letterheads. And the generic or self-written LORs are higher because the number of people in a rotation, 30, is higher. So you would see sometimes, yes, university can lead to a generic LOR, but not often as much as a private rotation. And it can also be a chore getting your LOR uploaded, because 30 into 12 is 360, right? When you email a preceptor who has 360 LORs to upload for that math season, guess what's going to happen? You're going to have backlog, right? And that's a big problem with private companies, right? Lastly, just jumping into how to get a strong LOR, right? It's if you're doing any rotation, part of the responsibility is on you. And it is to ask yourself, if you know the best physician possible, what would they do? And they would demonstrate respect, show initiative, which is agency. Agency is huge, which is showing that you can improve without me giving feedback, right? Showing me that you are going to go the extra mile to treat the patient. Let's say there's a Crohn patient and they're resistant to the treatment I'm giving you. Next day, without asking you, you did the literature search, literature review, and figured out 10 different treatments and gave it to me. You made my life easy. That's agency. People want to get people with agency, right? Having that is very powerful. Professionalism. So all the core competencies I talked about, that's what you need to show to get a strong LOR. And characteristics of a strong LOR, this is very important. If you do any rotation, is the specificity, the comparative language, which is specificity means that I can give you certain examples of places or experiences that I've had with you where you've been impactful in clinical care. Generic LORs lack it, right? Secondly, comparative language is saying that you were in the top 10 percentile, top 5 percentile of the students they worked in the last 10 years, 12 years is comparative LOR. It is a language which is in academic LORs, but you will see this missing in generic LORs. Agency and achievement, using adjectives, strong adjectives like accomplished, confident, insightful, right? Rather than hardworking or good, is a very big way to differentiate. LORs, which are from academic physician, have that secret language, right? These are strong adjectives, right? Accomplished, confident, insightful, versus hardworking and good are weak adjectives. Memories and anecdotes, like I talked to you about certain experiences where I can demonstrate your performance, where you did something for a patient. Strong endorsement, like where they explicitly in the end endorse you, right? This gets to, this is missed in LORs, which are generic from private companies. They lack the comparative language, and there's no specific details about your skills or achievements. And this is how we basically spot that, right? Okay, so lastly, I promised you that we were going to provide you free resources if you were to stay till the end, right? If you want the free resources, right, what you can do is contact us on WhatsApp. You should have received the message, and we'll send you these free resources. And basically what this includes is, number one, we'll put you in a group where we'll let you know about every single opportunity for research, sub-internships, externships in your specialty of choice, but let us know what math season you're applying for, and we can give that to you for free, completely free. That's not an issue, right? Secondly, we're going to send you free resources, right? Such as our email templates for getting cold-ships, or email templates for getting research externships or research fellowships, right? All for free. And that's because you stick till the, you were here with me till the end. I think I prolonged the session, and that's what I do. It's 2 hours, 50 minutes. It was supposed to be an hour, right? I think I wanted to give you the most information possible, so that, you match. That's what makes me happy, is if you are able to match. Makes me so happy when somebody sends me that message or email, right? So send us that WhatsApp message. Our WhatsApp is this: 919-201-5700. There's a +1 because it's a US number. So you can take a screenshot, send us a message. If we have sent you a message, just reply back, and we'll send you all of that for free. No worries about this, right? And all the rotation updates, this is for free, right? And all these rotations that we're going to send you, these are personally curated. What that means is they are more curated towards low student to doctor ratios, right? Instead of having 30:1 ratio, where 30 students are being supervised by one attending, we want the ones where it will be 2:1 or 3:1. So your LOR isn't so generic that you're getting 360 other LORs like you and you don't match, right? This is the kind of rotation opportunities I want to provide you, right? Which are helpful. And these are the opportunities I'm going to provide my brother, right? Who's also doing USMLE, the same stuff, right? And that's the kind of approach I took for this presentation as well. What would I tell my brother? What would I tell my sister? And I think, that independent thinking, and being your own judge, I think that's very important. I think if you want the updates, this is our WhatsApp plus the resources. Tell us, just send free resources to us. We'll send it back to us. And the second opportunity is more so paid, right? And this I cannot help. And let me get into what this means. The reason this is paid, this is basically research updates, and this is for research positions. Okay, so I just talked to you about how powerful research positions are, right? And that if you land a research, and this is for graduates, you are not eligible for this if you are an undergraduate, right? I'm sorry for that, but once you graduate, you can let us know, right? And the spots are only 100 students per year because of how rare these are. What we basically do is, you can let us know, let's say if you're interested in getting into a research position role, which is in person, you have to come to the US, right? The deposit for this is about $500, right? This is what we have to pay a certain party who we have worked with for the past 3 years. And they've given us great results. They are going to go look for research positions for you in the US, and they're going to create a list of research positions where, number one, you have a high likelihood of getting paid, right? We just have a student who got a research position, right? She has almost, I think, not a lot of research experience. She might have a case report or something. She just got a paid role, right? That is about $70,000 in 1 year paid for her, and she wants to go into surgery, right? And I'm pretty happy we're able, this is rare, I'll be very honest, that you get a paid role initially. Generally, the way it works is, once you pay that deposit, we look for that research position for you. The time it takes to get this research position, right, could be anywhere from about 1 to 3 months. Once you find that research position, you'll have an interview with the facility. Before you do an interview, we have to pay another third party, because they are going to utilize a lot of their resources to do you. And the reason this gets expensive, so it's about $10,000 to $12,000. I know it's expensive, and there's a reason it's expensive, because this goes to get other people paid who find that research position for you, right? This includes people in the network whose time is worth about $5,000 for 3 or 4 hours, right? Because they know stuff, they charge stuff, they're rare meat, right? So you pay the deposit of $500, and later on, we find the research position for you. And once we have that research position, right, for you, and it's 100% placement that you'll get it, right? Then you have to pay that $10,000 to $12,000, and you get that interview and you get that research position. just in case if you don't, right, you get that money back. We don't want to keep your money if we were unable to help you, right? The benefit of this is this. If you start with an unpaid role, in 6 months, if you show them, if you show skills, if you develop skills, it gets paid almost for everyone. And you get paid almost $70,000 a year to support yourself. Number two, you get, if you are good, if they like you, free USCE. Even if you don't get free USCE, you get the money to get free USCE. You get to come on the US on a J1, which is your J1 fee. Yeah, so you get the J1 itself. You get to stay in the US. You don't have to keep traveling from your home country, right? And again, this opens opportunities for networking, for research, for green card, for research publications, and elevates your Z score, like I talked to you about before, right? So it's very powerful, and I know it can take $10,000 to $12,000 to get there, but you get paid all that money back in about 6 months. But that also depends upon the initiative you show, right? And I can't promise it'll get paid even in 6 months if you don't show initiative, right? It's all dependent upon if they can justify the cost, right? You can also do this by yourself, right? By the way, if let's say you find it hard to pay that much money, I get that. The other way to do this is find research fellowships yourself. I'll send you and ask us for the PDF of this, right? And we'll send you the free PDF on how to do it yourself. The only caveat, I would be careful with this, and I think Kaushik, who's my partner in all of this, and he'll tell you about this. He's currently in UPMC, which is one of the top research institutes. He's in a paid research position. The problem with this, doing it yourself, is that you don't know, first of all, if this person is using you. Because there's many people who are predatory, and I'm not kidding, they will use you for 6 months and they won't make it paid. Because the part is, can I use this person to do this work I don't want to do? And because of that, students not only waste time, but I get a lot of messages from students who don't match. They did a research position to match. But the problem is the preceptor is the problem. They are like, hey, why am I not getting the interview? Because the preceptor doesn't care. They are not going to pull the strings for you, number one. Number two, they're not going to pay you at times, right? They're doing unpaid positions for 2 years, right? Supporting themselves because they are in the wrong place, right? There are certain places you shouldn't go, and that comes with experience. And that's why these, people that we work with who charge $10,000 to $12,000 do, is because they're taking that workload off your plate and figuring out what place would not use you, what place would pay you, and where is that place for a research position where there's a history of people going in for research jobs and they matched into competitive specialties, or not if competitive, at least if they, let's say, had an attempt or something else, they matched there. So they know the places that will get you where you want to be. But again, these are only 100 students per year because the opportunities are so damn rare and it takes a lot of effort, and we can't go above that. But if you're interested in that, just message us with the research updates and we'll add you to a group into your specialty. The number is same. It's the WhatsApp plus 919-201-5700, right? And if you have any questions, I can get into this. So this is the Q&A, right? So guys, if you have any questions, we have 15 minutes. Let's go into those questions. Yeah, so I see a hand raised by Hashika. Yeah, what's your question? Yeah, Hashika, allow mic. Yeah, so Hashika, you're allowed to speak. Okay, so Mahin has a question. I'll take that. Yeah, Mahin, I just allowed your mic.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes.
Hi, Dr. Manik. Thank you for this wonderful session. I will be quick. For getting into surgery residency, like I have secured one hands-on rotation in New York, but to get another one, I've been trying, but it's very hard. So, but I've also got like observership in a place like Mayo Clinic, Florida. So, do you think that shadowing a doctor, a surgeon in a place like Mayo Clinic would somewhat be more, meaningful. Um, and Mayo Clinic would be somewhat compensate for, say, elective.
I think if it's in a very big institution, observerships are not bad experiences just because they give you the opportunity to network around, and they might allow the opportunity. I think you should definitely go for it, right? And again, more USCE doesn't hurt, right? So if it's an opportunity which is not expensive, right? If it's an opportunity where you think your network will expand, I think it's a great opportunity to do an observership, but in a top quality institute which has a program itself, right? But saying surgery, right? Surgery requires a very competitive profile as of now. We were looking at the match rates. Yeah, it's I think close to now. The last time I viewed it, it's like 20% or something. It's super low. For prelim spots, it's a bit higher, I think. But for categorical general surgery, it's 20%. So the pool that you have is it's a very competitive pool. My question to you is, do you have any research or have you worked in a research position?
Yeah, I do. Like, as far as publications are concerned, I do have 2 to 3 publications, but I have done about 20 projects since it's my final year of my med school, and I've been into project from the start, research from the start of my med school. But due to lack of mentorship, and I'm unable to publish them. They
Yeah.
keep getting rejected. Yeah, but I have done like case report, case study, systematic review, meta analysis, and narrative reviews. So
So
yeah,
so if you
I
look,
do know research.
I would look at the match data. I think that's great work, and I think please continue doing that. The issue is if you go to the match data and they looked at the number of research items in surgery, it's close to 15, 20 research items, right? So people, right? So you're competing with those people. Secondly, what I would say is the best so let's say if my brother wanted surgery, the same advice goes to you is get a research position. Nothing beats it because of multiple factors, right? You could have multiple publications, but the problem is you will never beat your mentor. If your mentors, like their H index is low, right? Or their impact factor, where the publishing is 3 or 4, which tends to be what was in India for me, right? You will never surpass that mentor. What you will get is an impact factor of 4 versus somebody who's in the US who might have lower scores than you. They're working with a mentor with impact factor of 100 or 95. What happens is because I'm working under them, I get published in better journals. Not only that, think about it. You are going to build such a powerful network where they're going to vouch for you, right? Everything is, they can arrange for you for free. If they like you, they make calls. They're like, hey, this person needs a rotation. Get them a sub internship. I don't care. And the institutions have to give into their needs because they're getting them R1 grants, which are worth millions. So nobody, screws with them. You have so much power, right? Like if you ask Kaushik, I was surprised how much power, these PIs have over who gets selected because they are like, hey, if you don't take this person, I don't want to work with this institution. And the institution has to take that person despite an attempt, right? Because they like that person so much, they don't want to lose that person, right? So research is publications, like I showed you the Z score, right? Publications, amazing. Please keep doing that, right? It's going to help you get a research position as well in the end, right? But I would tell you, if you're applying for surgery, I would very, very much think about getting into a research position just to make sure that you match because it's so hard.
True. Yeah, I do have one more question. I'm sorry, I'm taking a lot of time.
No worries, please do.
Would you recommend me doing an unpaid since I am an US IMG and I'm from Boston? So the in area in Greater Boston, like say Beth Israel and Brigham, they do have a lot of postdoc research positions, but they are mostly unpaid. So depending upon the knowledge and the experience I would be bringing there, I feel like I should be paid, but I've looked there, they are mostly unpaid, and they say we will give you unpaid. So would you recommend me?
So I would expand your radius and check for other research positions because they're like, I'll give you an example. The student that we were working with who just landed a paid research position and she has no experience almost in research was because of the opportunity itself. Like they had a lot of money and they were like, hey, we don't care, we'll pay. We just want curiosity. We want this person to leave. So we don't want this person to leave. We want to support this person. We just want this, anybody. So it's because our radius was so big that we were able to land that for that person, and that depends upon your level of networking, who you know, who you don't know, if it is paid, right? And also, I would be very you could start in a certain research position, see how it goes, right? Let's say if they don't translate, like start with unpaid, and try to make it paid. If it doesn't get paid, I would try to think about shifting, because you just know what doesn't work, right? But always the better approach is to find a mentor who knows where and when to go where, because they know which person is going to use you for free labor, which person is actually going to pay you. So that is I would try to find a mentor in surgery for that.
Okay. Actually, I've been offered a lab position. There's an American board certified surgeon, but it's in another country, and he's a surgical virtual research lab. So it's a virtual, it's a American board certified, but it's not in the US. The surgeon itself is not in the US. He do have connections there, but the lab is in Peru, and he has invited me to join his lab. And I'm also accepted into principles and practices of clinical research by Harvard School of Public Health. That's a course 9-month course. So
my advice is come to the US, don't waste your time in Peru. That's my basic advice, because what matters in the end is preceptors who are here physically,
okay.
and who have big influence over the, it's not some connections that matter. You want to work with a preceptor who is influencing the field, because that's
Okay.
the kind of people who can make a change or a dent in your match. Others can't, right? So my advice would be to not go there, to come to the US and find a preceptor who actually has a history of getting people matched, right? Which comes with going to networking events, for talking to residents, and that's networking. This is this is another perspective shift that I see in US. Right, US is like a business, right? The way I would think about USMLE is, you are an individual business, right? You're an iPhone or an Android, and they are an individual business investing in you. What they want is good skills, which is their phone to work, right? And they don't want to pay immigration charges in many ways, right? Or they don't want to pay import charges, right? So what I'm kind of going into is, if you are a business, they are a business, what makes a difference in business is who you know, right? Your network is your net worth. That's what we are taught in business, is network is net worth, because the people you know change everything, right? If you know the CEO of the right company, they can change everything for you, versus if you know the wrong, CEO of the wrong company, they can drown you, right? And the only way you find the right people is networking. So my advice would be network a lot. It's not a streamlined way, but the best opportunities is in the US. Don't go to other countries. You want to go to a place where the mentor is changing the field. It's not some mentor who just got funded for the first time. I actually have, an example is Kaushik. Kaushik can talk to you about this as well. He's working with a myositis researcher who's literally written the evaluation tools for myositis, the diagnostic criteria. So imagine how powerful he is in rheumatology. And if he says that Kaushik should match, he'll match. Nobody can decline it, because he has so much power, right? He's basically influencing the field, and he's bringing R1 grants, right? Which is millions of dollars to the institution, and they don't want to lose him. So I would find somebody like that and work with them, right? Which at times you need a mentor. You need to work with other people to figure that out.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I'm again sorry for taking your time.
No worries. Please do. Okay. Any other questions? Let me just unmute people, and you can ask. So I'm unmuting a lot of people. Whoever has their mic unmuted, can ask me a question.
So, Dr. Manik, you had said that for networking, you can Google the area name and then the clinics nearby and start, cold emailing. And only very few would respond. Could I do the same for research as well, or just only for USCE?
You can do the same for research. The way to do that, and you can look it up. Here's the problem, right? Like I showed you. Let me just do a screen share to illustrate it. And let's go to my window. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
So let me show you how to do that, right? For example, if I am in internal medicine and I want a research position, right? Internal medicine, top researchers, university.
Right.
9 internal, like, you have to, again, this is brute forcing in many ways. So I can go to Lipin Chen, right, in Yale School of Medicine. Now I just opened him. Let's see. Okay. Let me try this. Maybe Yale work. Yale, yeah, I don't know what's the issue. Okay, so let's look at internal medicine. Let's go to world's best scientist, Walter Willett, right? This guy, let's go to his profile and see what he's doing. Search web. Okay, so Walter, he's on Harvard. I see. Okay, so let's say, what research is he doing? Okay, so has these publications, right? I would look for his current grants that he's working on, which is not hard to find, right? Let's say faculty and research profiles, research centers, institutes, resources. Okay, so let's go here and look at her, Erin. Okay, and dean of for education, yada yada yada, publications, view more publications, how to apply executive. Okay, so what I would do is I would just look at her publication, see what work she is doing, right? Like this is, and they give you the email too, right? So you can email them, and it's not hard. You just have to press a lot of buttons, right? And out of 100 people, a few people will reply, right? Even out of them, some won't sponsor visa if you need a visa, right? But it does take, like from my experience, about, let's say, University of Pittsburgh, that's where Kaushik is, right? Let's say you want to work with Kaushik's mentor, right? So DOM, right? So latest grants $1 million and above. Let's look at this guy, Preetu Sindhat. He's working on vascular medicine. So his grant is $1 million, and it's NIH. I can R1 grant, right? R01. So I go here, and this is his. Okay, I don't know why we are sorry. The profile is no longer active. So let's go here, vascular medicine. Okay, here's his email. So easy. Go through his research. Email him. Say, hey, do you have this position available? And see, another way to do it is NIH reporter, which is NIH R1 grant searcher, R01 grant. And this is called as NIH report. It's a great website where you can search for people with R1 grants. So for example, you go to reporter, right? And let's say you want to look at just all the researchers here, and these are all the people who are doing research, right? You just need to know how to navigate this site, right? I could clear it by, let's say, United States. I want to look at New York, right? And it would sort me. So basically, training program in cancer biology, right? Or geriatrics research from bench to bedside. And look at, so this is a R1 funded grant, right? Because they were funded, and see what their email is. This is the person who's doing it. I would email them and see, what their thoughts are. But again, this is a big process. People take about 6 months to 2 years to find proper positions. And the problem with this approach, that I'll be honest with this, is you are paying with time, right? Imagine if you, let's say, pay with time in terms of 6 months to 2 years. What's happening there is, imagine how much money you would have lost if you weren't attending, because every 6 months lost is every match cycle lost, right? So let's say you lose 2 years, right, figuring this out. The problem with this approach is, if you're a mentor, this is a beautiful approach, right? If you know people in the field, they can tell you what to do, what not to do, and that comes with networking, right? But if you don't have a mentor, the issue is you can get into the wrong position and take a long time to get into it. And then people are pissed because they don't get paid. They spend way too much money, right? Now they're looking for positions that will pay them, and nothing pays them, and they're stuck. And I get a lot of these messages from students who are like, hey, I applied this cycle. I had a research position for a year. I have 0 interviews. And I'm like, I'm so sorry to hear that, because the PI doesn't care, right? And in their mind, the logic is that every research position leads to a match. That is incorrect. It is, you need to find a person who actually has real influence, and his call matters, right? There are people who have 0 influence. People don't like them, and their call would hurt you than help you. There are people like that, right? So it's about figuring, and that's why I build my networking. And to be honest, like, I have a brother who wants to do USMLE himself, right? And I'm trying to figure out like a research position in this. And for that, you need a very powerful network, and you need to help them and figure it out. and it can take money, because a lot of people here, their time is worth $3,000, $4,000 for 5 to 6 hours, and they're quality people, but you have to pay, right? Just like an iPhone. And if you, and the thing is, you can't end up with even the wrong kind of people, because they might take your money and run away, and I can see how that can be detrimental. And that's why you'll see a lot of people confused, where they'll be like, hey, research positions help. Some people will be saying, will tell you it's a scam. Some will tell you, no, like this is what, like I had multiple attempts, I matched, right? It's because of knowing the right people versus wrong people, which makes all the difference. And that is where I think mentorship comes into play. And I think it's so underemphasized in India, where I'm from, because in India, you have such a student mindset, right? If I get a certain score or rank, I have a position, right? Which is like neat for me. I had a 4,480 position score, 4,480, position. Score was, I forgot. I could get a seat from that, but I did not need to know anyone. And that is a very bad mindset for life, because life doesn't work that way. It's a score doesn't define your life. What defines your life is networking. I'll be very honest. And the beauty of US is, right, while many people might criticize that why do we have to do so many things like this, but let me tell you, once you like grow up and become an adult and like you're working, it's all your net worth, what you become in life is because of people around you. And this is what I love about USMLE is it teaches you to learn how to network, the value of a mentor, because mentors can save you years down the line, right? Which can save you millions of dollars. Because the wrong mentor, like let's say you don't have a mentor, 3 years, I can't match into general surgery. I'm paying this US agency who's telling me keep doing US clinical experience, because that's a conflict of interest, but I don't know what to do, right? But this mentorship course, so a lot of mentors charge, right? Like, at least in the US, but I'll give you an example. So I do YouTube, right? A lot of people here, if you want to learn from the best of the best, their masterminds are worth $10,000 a year, $50,000 a year. But let me tell you, if I paid for any of this, it has paid me back like in multiple hundreds like of thousands of dollars, because they told me things that other people don't know, and they know people in the industry, right? Like, but their time is so expensive that you have to buy their time. That's the issue. But mentorship is what I will tell you is sometimes makes the whole difference. And I'm not talking about the mentorship that a lot of these companies offer. I'm talking about the mentorship where this person can influence your future, and they have a history of doing that. And it's hard to do that.
Okay. And so one other thing is that, like, suppose you have relatives or doctors in the US, how do we get, like, use that, like, to our side, like, because they would have graduated much before, they would have written USMLEs way before us, and they would not have the same kind of mindset like the student will be having at the moment. So how do I make use of that?
Great point. I would reach out to them, nurture my connections as much as well. Sometimes even like, they know one person who pulls the string for you, and that can have a big impact, right? But also like, so this is again the game of life, right? I can't fully predict what they can do for you, but your best strategy, if you've learned game theory, right? I would, anybody who's doing USMLE, I would say study game theory. And game theory says one thing, right? Which is think about in this game, how can I build the biggest network? And the only way to win the game is not by playing to win for yourself. It is by playing to win for everyone else and you. It's a we win rather than I win, right? So ask yourself, how can I help these people? How can I is there a gift you can bring them, or how can I nurture it with them, the connections? Because the real people who win the game of life are people who are playing to win for everyone rather than themselves. And I think that's one of the best things you can do is work with these people, nurture that. And even if they're not able to help you, that's fine. That's okay. But the fact that you put in that effort matters, right? And sometimes, they feel that, you've helped them so much, they go out of their way to help you. Like they'll figure out a way, right? I am lucky that I have people like that where, they are not even medicos, but I have like relatives. I ask them, hey, I'm looking, for this certain experience. I can't find it. They had a doctor friend, and they called her for me, and they went the extra mile to put me on a call, disturb her. They hadn't talked to her for 2 years, but they went the extra mile, because I think I was lucky to have them. But I think that's what you can do is, irrespective of what they can do for you, ask yourself, what can I do for them, and do whatever best to deliver value. right? While extending your network. And the only way to extend your network is asking, hey, how can I build skill sets and how can I make other people's life easy? So they can also help you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay. Any other questions, guys?
Hey, hi. That was an amazing session. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Shreya, and I wanted to know because my aim is to go for a match into diagnostic radiology. And is there a difference when it comes to like observerships and externships? Because I've been told by the mentors I had, but since I'm new to all of this, I'm not sure what is the credibility of it. But they said it doesn't make much of a difference, as opposed to the general opinion of externships and hands-on is way more reliable than an observership.
Okay. Great question, I think. So DR, like, in psychiatry, you could argue the point that because you're not touching the patient, you're looking at images, it doesn't make a difference, and that's true. But what people miss is the first part of DR is what? Prelim IM, correct?
Yeah.
Do you think that makes a difference in internal medicine?
Definitely, yes.
So that's my point is in internal medicine, prelim IM, it would definitely make a difference, right? And I'm also going to tell you this thing, right? Like, when you're selling two iPhones, right? They're equal, right? Now, let's say another iPhone has this deal that if you buy this, right, like iPhone 10, like let's say the newest iPhone, we're going to give you an AI upgrade or something like that. You're going to take that, right? So if you have financial resources, and I think, that allows you to get better experiences, I would get them because I would not want my brother or myself to risk the match. This is what people don't understand. Because let's say, if you lose the match in first year, it's not the end of your life, but you're losing a lot of money, not just the money you paid for the match, but also the money you missed because you're not an attending now, right? Because that's a $500,000 loss, actually. This is what people don't realize every time you fail to match, right? Plus the frustration, the suffering, all of that. So my question to you is the question shouldn't be, is this a good experience or not? The best question you can ask in the whole math cycle or in the USMLE is, how do I play a game where it is inevitable that I match, right? It's inevitable. It's like, it'll be foolish of them to not take me. How do I develop that level of expertise, research, that there in no way, like, it should leave a room for me to go unmatched, right? I think that is a very powerful question, and that will guide you to make choices where it would make that reality true, right? An example I can give you for Kaushik, right? Like, he's also somebody with me, is that he has an attempt on his steps, right? But he does have a green card too. He has an attempt on his steps, but he's guaranteed a spot in residency in the most competitive institution, UPMC, right? Which has a lot of money, right? Only because he knows the right people. He's played the game in such a way that it's rigged for him. So asking the question, how do I rig it for me? Because, life isn't fair, it's rigged. And that means going on the extra mile. And if I would ask myself, even if one program cares about it, right, what about them, right? So if you have the option of getting a higher quality rotation, even at a higher price, I would think of it as an investment, right? If you don't, please go ahead, do the observerships. But if you do, I think it's missing out on that even one chance.
True. And it was always, we see it's recommended to do a postdoc fellowship for competitive specialties. And as you mentioned, that sub-internships are pretty much prevailing, that's given more importance. So do you think it's because in postdoc fellowships, you will be offered sub-internships, and it's not something that will be available on sites, and you get to know people, and in the end, it's all about networking. So do you think is that why you think postdoc fellowships work? Because I've been thinking about doing one, but I'm not sure because I don't have sub-internships yet, and I'm still in my third year of med school. So what would be?
Yeah, so if you're in third year, again, I would focus on the steps, right? And at the same time, I would build my research profile as much as possible, right? If you're interested in learning research, you guys can, send us a WhatsApp message. We do have somebody who's like a top researcher. They have multiple R1 grants, and we got them to teach a course. That course, however, is expensive. We haven't, told a lot of people about it because we want to keep the volume low, right? It is $3,500 for about, I think, 8 months or something. And the promise is that it's not that we're going to get publications. It's we want to develop your skill set to the point that it would be foolish for somebody to reject you, right? Because skill sets is what prevails in the end, not publications, right? So that is a way to do that in third year if you're interested. If you want to work with anyone else, right, you could do that. If you think there's another research course, please go ahead and do that. At this time, the best thing is build your research portfolio as much as possible, network. I wouldn't, sub-internships, I would think about in fourth year when your internship is for example, the end part of your internship, I would extend it for 6 months, right? And do sub-internships at that time, right? And after that's over, I would think about, you can try applying for the match and see how it goes, right? Based upon like whenever your graduation is, right? And if you can meet the deadline. If not, I would just get a research position. I'll be ready, right? Just to take on a research position if the match doesn't happen, right? And that's okay. I think that's a fair way I would play it.
Actually, I do have considerable research skill set. I've got about 5 publications. I'm working on 6 more. And I think statistical analysis is one skill set I just gained recently. But I don't know if I can improve more in that field, but I'm focusing on it. I won't lie about it. But I think the entire USCE part has been preoccupied in my head right now because I'll be in fourth year in like a few days. It's my end of third year.
You have an internship left, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let us know. Like we'll let you know about any opportunities. If like I told you, like we'll add you to the WhatsApp group. If there are any opportunities, you can sign up. Currently, there is one opportunity. I think it's available in South Texas. It's a sub internship. They only take one student because of that, it is slightly expensive because they don't have a lot of students, right? I'm not sure the exact pricing. I think it's upwards of some 3,000 or 3,500. But yeah, there is that opportunity. But there are other sub internships that you can look into. It's Stony Brook. Southampton's has one. The only problem with Stony Brook is that they don't. My friend did Stony Brook. That's why I know they don't take IMGs. Which is the problem. They gave him an interview as a courtesy, but he knew he wouldn't match there. He matched somewhere else, right? But it's a great opportunity nevertheless. The letter it generates is amazing. So you can look into that, but we'll keep you aware because it's changing all the time. Certain institutions come, and I have a big network, and that's why I'm able to pull this off because I know which place, when they'll offer, and which one works. So, we can let you know. But I think at this time you shouldn't be that preoccupied with USCE right now. I think research skills are the most, awesome. You're working on research. I think you're way ahead of the curve, like based on what you told me. But I would make sure you finish the steps, right? Have your research done by the time, do sub internships in the end of your final year, right? And see what your chances are at that time and apply, right? If you get 1-2 interviews, that's good. If you match, awesome. If you don't, again, research positions are there always.
Okay, that's awesome. The last question, I'm so sorry.
Sure, please go ahead. Yeah.
Preparing for step 2 right now. And I'm not done with my fourth year yet. I actually did my step 1 like last year, mid, during the beginning of third year. And I have advice for step 2 because I'm still not done with my fourth years and it's been a little tough.
Okay, so the question is?
Of any advice on step 2 before fourth year, or do you think it's more better to do it post fourth year? Or is it doable?
I think take your time. I don't think you should rush it, right? It's okay to delay it as long as it doesn't impinge on the plan. So the max window I would keep is would be the end of fourth year, right? Before internship, because the problem is once internship begins, you might not be in the right headspace to do it, right? Some people will tell you can extend your internship. The problem is, would that extension be used for the steps or would that extension be used for sub internships, right? Or quality experience, right? So I would say the best period would be the end of fourth year to pull that trigger. Also, you're in the step 1 clinical, the evaporation window. which is the longer you take from step one, the more your knowledge evaporates for step one and the more hard work you have to put. So that's why what I've found personally is taking step one step two as soon as possible without compromising on your NBME scores and making sure your NBME scores are up to the mark. I think that's the best way. And it's within a year for most people within step one that they should take step two.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why I was thinking to do it mid fourth year, because it's been almost like 6 months since I last given it.
Okay, awesome. All the best.
Thank you so much.
No worries. Any other questions, guys?
So in terms of like research position, like for USCE, we have a set of things we can look forward, and in India and US, it's obviously the patient doctor thing is the same. Whereas in terms of like research course, how exactly should we evaluate whether this course is actually credible or not? Like there are so many present on the net nowadays, like research update organization and multiple platforms providing research. So how do I know if this is how it should be taught, this is what is the right way, like how first aid for step one?
That's such a great question that you asked it, because when I was in the match, I think, I was applying, I was so confused, right? Because I was told, hey, publications matter, you do this and that. So what happens is, because there's a demand in the market, people make supply by selling what people want, right? The problem is this, right? If a company, so here's how I tell if I think a company is good or not in terms of what they're teaching. The first red flag in any organization is look at the person. Has he done research that he's teaching you, right? Is he a credible name in the field? If they have publications, let's say they're from Harvard, or leave Harvard, let's say their H index, I would look at their H index, right? Are they the kind of person who, I can, other people are working with? Is this a person who's in active research, basically, right? That is level one of red flags. If there's a red flag there, I wouldn't take it. Second red flag to note is this something where they're promising a particular outcome, which is you'll have a publication, versus is this a place where they're actually passionate and they want you to develop a skill set? Because I'm telling you, what remains in the end is not a publication. Programs don't care about that. Programs care about, do you have the skills to execute research while being in residency and so forth, right? It's not the publication that matters, right? It's the skill behind the publication. I will look at the person who's teaching it. Is this the premise of this course? Is it a publication, or is the premise the skill set? A skill set, like person who's giving you the skill set is way better. And even if it's expensive, so this is something that comes into students' head. They're promising me to a publication for $300 versus this research course cost me $4,000 or $10,000. So the problem is, if it's somebody with R1 grants, right? Like my time I'm getting millions in grants. It's hard to justify giving my time to someone, and this is just the US, you'll understand when you come here. It's hard to justify giving it for $200, right? A course or a publication. So you won't find courses in those ranges from people who are actually up there and who know what they're teaching, right? It's generally in the range of 3,000, 4,000, right? Because the time is so damn expensive, and I know from experience, right? So generally, the more expensive the course is, that's generally the premise, but I could be wrong. There could be exceptions, but the more expensive the course is, the better it is. Also, I would look at the number of people in it. If let's say certain publication has 30 people, or like 30 people in a cohort, it's like research is not something you learn by through lectures. It's something you learn by doing. You need one-to-one attention. You need somebody to hold your hand. And this is what people will tell you who do research positions, is that they learn research there because you're working one-on-one with the mentor. Like you do something, they give you feedback. Do something, give you feedback, right? And you need a lot of feedback to learn. It's very hard to learn through a course or when you're in your own country, right? So what I would tell you is, if you're learning research, there are free courses. Go ahead and do that. But if it's somebody quality, someone quality, it's not the kind of person who is promising an outcome, which is you will get a publication. Tends to be not the one that caters to the lowest hanging fruit, which is the cheapest course, like $100, $200. That's my particular observation. I could be wrong there. Might be some saint who does that. Maybe I could be wrong, but generally that's not the case. That's the exception to the rule. And thirdly, I would also look at, like, is this person actually passionate about research? Like the way they talk about it, you'll know, right? If you have seen a certain person teach medicine, right? I'll give an example. So Marrow is a great example. If you've done Marrow, if you look at Rakesh Nair, the way he teaches, you know this guy loves medicine, right? He makes you passionate. So if that person personally isn't passionate and it's more money, right, that's driving them, I would not buy that course, because it's more money for them, the business for them, than giving you that skill set. So I think that's the best way to figure it out. And also online reviews, you can always go to Google, search research update or whatever you said, right? Don't take my word for it. Go to research update, reviews, research update Reddit, or, you can look at Reddit forums and see what other people thought.
Sorry to interrupt. I had seen one of your review in Research Update organization. So I thought it might be a little credible.
So the issue is, where is this review? I never put that myself. That's so interesting. Yeah, could you send it to me? I want to have a look.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it was like said with your profile picture, Dr. Manik Madaan. So, and because there wasn't much for me to cross check, like whether this is important or not, discuss, and the course was worth $5K. And so you had reviewed under it. So I thought, okay, this has much more credibility, given that.
Yeah, please send that to me. I'm going to look this up. That's so interesting, because I personally did not input any of this, but that's interesting to me. Okay.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Hello, Dr. Manik. Thank you for this amazing session. I would like to know, for example, if I'm looking forward cardiology, and first of all, it has to be the internal medicine, getting into internal medicine. Can I also do a lot of things to get a fellowship, for example, in cardiology? Like I have a bit more time during the residency of internal medicine for that. And also, do you know if there are sub-internships or electives that accept students who didn't take USMLE yet? Yeah.
Could you summarize that question? So you want to do cardiology and you're looking for cardiology experience?
Yes, and I'm thinking of, for example, I'm a almost terminal year student, and I don't think I have a lot of time to do a lot of electives, and I know it's quite competitive. So I'm thinking, getting into internal medicine, is it as hard? And then do I have time to prepare even better for cardiology for the fellowship?
I love that you're already so sure about your subspecialty. Like, you seem to have a vision. I think that's awesome. Here's what I'll tell you how it works in the US. So whenever I did not know this, I had the same presumption. I was like, I want to go into child psychiatry, which is a fellowship. The problem is that when you go for the residency interview, it's an internal medicine residency, and it is so many other subspecialties. What they're looking for is not a person who wants to get into a cardiology fellowship. What they're looking for is somebody who is holistically interested in medicine and find they can do a fellowship. Like, it's not, so many people, what they do is, because they're so interested in a subspecialty, they make the interview about the subspecialty, that, hey, I want to go into cardiology. This is all I want. And the program becomes disinterested in them because of one aspect, right? Which is, if all this person wants is cardiology, they're not going to like internal medicine, which is way more than cardiology, right? They're not going to like the nephro rotation. They're not going to like general medicine. They're not going to like, this stuff, right? Maybe all they have to do is cardiology fellowship after they do an internal, let's say, a residency from their home country. And that's like what people think, right? Because, like another example I can give you is, I want to buy an iPhone. You are selling me an Apple Watch. What can I do with an Apple Watch without an iPhone, right? So the premise of your match shouldn't be cardiology or any cardiology rotation, right? That can be thought about later. It should be general internal medicine, right? And even during the interview, you can say, hey, I am interested in cardiology, but your holistic focus is IM, because that's what they are looking for, right? And this can be thought about later on, right? And it's awesome to have this. I think, I love that you have a vision, right? But in order for you to get to the vision, you have to first sell that iPhone and then get them to get that Apple Watch, right, which is your cardiology fellowship, and IM is the iPhone. That's the analogy I have. I don't know why I have so many iPhone analogies. Yeah, but so what I would do is, if you want sub internships, right, like we'll add you to the group. If you like, text us and we'll let you know, right. At the same time, there are sub internships that you can look into yourself, like if you have a network, or you can Google it, and I would apply as soon as possible, because they run out. Like, I'll give you an example. So the one that we have in South Texas here, right, they only have one spot, because it's so hard to handle a sub intern, like, for them, right? Because it's so much responsibility, you need so much supervision. So it's incredibly competitive to get a sub internship, and it's the rarity, exception rather than the rule, unless you are a postdoc or something like that, right? So I, as you, would focus on giving the steps ASAP, right? Making sure that's done, right? And applying for, I'll keep you guys updated in the group about what rotations are available. If that's something that suits you, awesome. If not, that's okay. You can look into other places. I showed you how to look into those, right? There's Residency Explorer, Frida, looking into programs which take IMGs, emailing them specifically, right? There's cold ships, there's other ways to do this, right? So I would think about that.
Thank you very much. And do you know if they, for English, they accept more of TOEFL or IELTS? That's a question I also have.
I think that's a great question. I don't think so, but that's what I think. I would let you know later. Like, you just can message us, and we can look into if there is a requirement. Generally, even rotations which have a TOEFL requirement, right, it's a waivable requirement for most rotations, right? The students think, hey, I need a TOEFL. It's not always the case. If they think your English proficiency is good, you're from a country which they find has a great English proficiency, they can waive it off, even a TOEFL.
Thank you very much.
No worries. Okay. Any other questions, guys? Okay.
Am I audible to you, sir?
What?
Am I audible to you, Dr. Manik?
Yeah.
Yeah, greetings, Dr. Manik. I am an Indian from Tamil Nadu, in Tamil Nadu Dr. MGI Medical University. There is one problem with securing USCEs. In government medical colleges in Tamil Nadu, we are supposed to finish medicine, surgery, OG, and pediatrics, all 4 of these rotations. And after that, we can apply for extensions. And even then, the extension is about 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
And then the further problem is that because of my starting letter, I always have to finish any one of them last. What can I do about the electives, sir?
I think that's a great question. So all you have is like 30 days then.
No, my
Sorry,
extension is for 90 days, sir.
Yeah, 90 days. All you have is 90. I'm sorry. All you have is 3 months. That's what I meant to say, and it came out as 30. Yeah, but all you have is 3 months to do rotations, correct?
Yes, sir.
So the thing is, like, I get I had a lot of other issues. I went to school in Bangalore, Karnataka, and they had their own restrictions, right? Like, and you might have one thing that's, this is how, just like the grass is always greener on the other side. You think, your place has an issue, but other places have other issues. So you got to work with what you're handed. I would just try to plan it somehow that you get a rotation, in at least 2 rotations in that 3-month period, because it's a short period. You would have to travel and come back. At least 2 rotations, if you can get it in that period, get done with your internship, right? And at the same time, your steps are done, and apply if there's time, right? With those 2 rotations, I wouldn't worry. Or you could, the other way to go around this was be like, once you're done with your elective, your internship itself, you can now apply for more sub internships after they're over, and do the rest of the 2 months, or 1 month if you want, and apply with the home country LOR. But those are the ways to like work around that, and that's all you can do. Is that's just like the hand you've been dealt.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'm like, that's just how it is. Everyone has their own, the programs, and medical schools have their own shortcomings, right? There might be some perks that you don't see that you have, that might, like, others don't have, right? There are medical schools who are not on WDOMS, right? No matter what, they're stuck with getting sponsor notes. And I know so many medical schools where they don't have sponsor notes and they're crying, and it will take 2 to 3 years, and they can't do USMLE because of that, right? So I think just play with the hand that you've dealt with, and that's the only thing you can do. That's life.
I have one more question, sir.
Mhm.
Sorry for interrupting. One more question. I am planning to take residency in general surgery and after that cardiothoracic surgery. Is it fine if I start one of my research projects in cardiothoracic surgery because that's my first one, and I'm about to end my third year and I'm about to enter into my final year, and at that time I had applied for an ICMR STS program, but unfortunately I didn't get selected. So can I go ahead with that research project for cardiothoracic surgery?
Sure. I think something is better than nothing. And again, CT, like there's a lot of general surgery really likes cardiothoracic surgery research too. I think that's completely justified.
Hello, Dr. Manik. My name is Omkar. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So currently I am in my last year of my medical school, and I gave my step one like a year ago, and currently I'm preparing for my step two. And the situation I'm right now, I'm in search of electives, and I have a list of institutes, and I have a capacity of doing at least 4 to 5 electives. And I'm like in a dilemma situation whether I should concentrate on my like step two. And I'm not like a stellar scoring kid, but I'm like trying my best in the step two preparation. And I have like 3 to 4 months of my like a kind of vacations between my med school to concentrate on electives. So I'm like in a dilemma situation whether I need to just focus on my electives for right now, because as we know, being like a medical student, we get the hands-on electives and less opportunity of hands-on after you graduate. So do I need to like, should I concentrate a step two right now, or concentrate on getting electives more, and then after graduation focus on my research and a step two?
Okay, so you okay, gotcha. I would, given that it's easier to do electives, I would prioritize them, honestly, right? And step two again can be taken care at a later time. Sometimes students do step two and they study for step two while on their rotations. It's hard for some if the clinical load is higher in certain rotations. And I've had people who study they basically study while going through their rotations. It's a big period, 4 months, and that's kind of their dedicated zone as well, and they just go home and they write it. So I think that would be a better strategy, because you don't want to miss on hands-on experience as much as possible, because once you graduate it's just so much harder for you,
Okay,
while
one
step two
last
can come back. Yeah.
yeah, sorry to interrupt. So the one last question, like as I said, I have a capacity of doing like 3, 4 electives. So I want to get into a program of general surgery. So would you recommend to do electives like I'm planning to do one in research, and the three, do you recommend doing in general surgery or maybe internal medicine or emergency, like going in variety, or just going for general surgery?
General surgery requires a very much a general surgery approach, right? Like they want very dedicated applicants, right? I am not so much as much, because it's not as competitive. I would not think about doing anything but general surgery. Okay. I've unmuted a few other people if they want to talk.
Hi.
Yes.
Sorry. I have a question. I'm in the middle of my fourth year right now, and basically I have a big summer break, like 2 months. Do you think I should prioritize finding electives, doing research, or working on my step one?
Okay. So could you repeat that? Like my audio just cut off. Could you repeat that, please?
Yeah. So I'm in the bit. I have a long summer break coming up, so I'm like new to this entire process of applying to the US. But I was wondering if I should focus on my research, the research side, or my USMLE, or doing electives first, because I have done neither of anything except some research.
Where are you in your medical school right now? Like in terms of yeah.
So I'm in the UK, and so I'm in between my 4th and 5th year now.
Okay, so somewhere between 4th and 5th year, and like how long is med school in UK? I know you have a FY1 and FY2 as interns. So how